majestic dragons that restore balance to the world and legendary guardians of the seas and skies, to sadistic desert stalkers, cursed dolls driven by pure hatred, and icy predators that freeze victims and feast on their remains. The third generation of Pokemon brought us 135 new pocket monsters, an expanded focus on nature and balance, and some of the most mythologically rich legendaries to date. So today we're traveling over to Hoenn and ranking all 135 Gen 3 Pokemon from good to evil. And as usual, we'll be starting with the most noble Pokemon and working our way down to the most evil. These Pokemon are the good. Taking the gold medal of good and floating into the rankings like a cosmic shooting star is Jirachi. Jirachi is basically the genie of the Pokemon world, except it doesn't bother with all the lamp theatrics. Jirachi shows up once every millennium, and Pokédex entry says that it has the power to grant wishes, and honestly, that's putting it mildly. Jirachi is the Pokemon equivalent of a miracle and a cute, starry package. The catch is that you only have 7 days to make your wish count before it goes back to sleep for another 1,000 years. Despite its godlike abilities, Jirachi isn't looking for fame or glory. In Jirachi Wishmaker, it bonds with Max and uses its power to bring joy and protect its friends, all while showing off a playful and lovable personality. And when things get tough, Jirachi does what it always does, sacrifices its comfort for the greater good. Its powers are legendary, but what makes it truly special is its unwavering compassion. It could rule the world if it wanted to, but instead, it chooses to nap and make people happy. So what's not to love? But let's move on to our silver medal of good. And zooming in next are Latios and Latios. Latios is the heart of the duo, radiating calm vibes and sensing emotions like a psychic therapist. If someone's upset, Latios doesn't need words, it just exudes peaceful energy and makes everything okay. Honestly, if it started a meditation app, it would probably cure half the world's stress in a week. Latios, on the other hand, is the bodyguard everyone wishes they had. Its Pokédex entries rave about its speed and power, but what really stands out is its fierce devotion. Latios doesn't just protect, it obliterates anything threatening its loved ones. It's the Pokemon equivalent of mess with my family and you'll regret it. Together, the Eon duo are a perfect blend of compassion and strength. They're loyal, protective, and way too good for this world. In Pokemon Heroes, Latios and Latias, they prove their worth as the ultimate guardians, with Latios literally giving its life to save Altamare. Now, we may have a bit of a surprising pick for our bronze medal of good. Next up is Absol. Absol, the disaster Pokemon, is one of the most misunderstood Pokemon in existence. Pokédex entries describe it as a harbinger of calamity, appearing before natural disasters strike. While its presence is often seen as a bad omen, Absol isn't causing these events, it's trying to warn others of impending danger. Its keen senses allow it to detect subtle changes in the environment, making it a selfless protector that often gets unfairly blamed for the disasters it predicts. Absol is a deeply noble Pokemon, dedicating its life to helping others despite the suspicion and fear it often faces. It doesn't act out of aggression or malice, instead, it quietly works to save lives, even if it is unwelcome. Absol's calm demeanor and ability to endure unfair judgment without losing its purpose make it one of the more morally good Pokemon out there. In the anime, Absol's misunderstood nature is a recurring theme, particularly in Absolute Disaster, where it tries to save a village from harm. Despite being shunned and blamed, Absol continues to warn others, proving its unwavering dedication to doing the right thing. Basically, what I'm saying is everybody owes Absol a huge apology because he is a good boy. Gliding in with elegance next is the Gardevoir line. Starting with Ralts, evolving into Kirlia, and culminating in Gardevoir, this evolutionary line is a shining example of emotional intelligence and unwavering loyalty. Ralts is a shy and empathetic Pokemon that can sense emotions from humans and other Pokemon, and it gravitates towards positive energy, only appearing to those with kind hearts. When it evolves into Kirlia, it becomes a beacon of joy and beauty. Kirlia's Pokédex entries mention its ability to sense happiness and amplify it through a graceful dance. And then we reach Gardevoir, the pinnacle of the line and a Pokemon of unmatched selflessness. Its Pokédex entries emphasize its fierce loyalty, describing its willingness to protect its trainer at all costs, even if that means creating a black hole to eliminate threats. Yeah, Gardevoir will bend the laws of physics to keep you safe. While its unwavering devotion could be dangerous in the wrong hands, its intentions are nothing but pure, making it one of the most morally upright Pokemon in existence. But now we get to the cosmic referee, Rayquaza. Rayquaza is basically the Pokemon world's version of Mom's coming downstairs to stop the fighting. While Kyogre and Groudon are busy wrecking the planet with floods and lava, Rayquaza just swoops in from the ozone layer and makes them stop like the ultimate mediator. Its Pokedex entries highlight its eternal flight through the skies, where it munches on meteoroids and avoids the petty squabbles of the surface, until it has to step in and fix everything, that is. Rayquaza isn't just strong, it's the strongest. Its Mega Evolution doesn't just look cool, it comes with the power to cancel out extreme weather, undoing all the chaos caused by Primal Kyogre and Groudon. And it doesn't just throw hands for fun, it fights to restore order, and it wins every time. In Destiny Deoxys, Rayquaza proves it's not just about breaking up land in sea fights, it'll defend its turf in the sky too. Whether it's stopping a planetary crisis or teaching Deoxys a lesson, Rayquaza is the definition of don't mess with me. Now, we heard you all like Mudkips, so let's talk about the Swampert line. And if you don't love Mudkip, are you even capable of joy? This little guy bonds with trainers faster than you can say starter Pokemon and has a knack for sensing its surroundings to keep everyone safe. Marshtomp follows suit, keeping things friendly and reliable even as it grows more capable in both water and land environments. And then there's Swampert, who is essentially the Superman of water Pokemon. Its Pokedex entries describe it as a loyal protector, using its incredible strength and awareness to shield others from danger. Whether it's sensing storms with its fins or clearing debris after natural disasters, this is more than just a Pokemon. It's a lifeguard, a construction crew, and a weather forecaster rolled into one. But let's talk about the fluffy, pillowy Altaria line. Swablu might be one of the most harmless Pokemon in existence. It uses its cloud-like wings to clean dirty objects because it can't stand a mess. Basically, a neat freak with feathers. The only danger Swablu poses is guilt-tripping you into cleaning your room, which, let's be real, many of us probably need. It's all fluff and no bite, making it a very pure Pokemon. And then comes Altaria, and honestly, it's just as wholesome, if not more so. It doesn't just fly majestically, it sings while doing it, soothing hearts and creating a calm, peaceful atmosphere. It's like the Pokemon world's personal therapist, except it's also fiercely loyal and will protect you with every ounce of its very fluffy body. Next up is Lovedisk. The Rendezvous Pokemon is one of the most peaceful creatures in the Pokemon world. Its heart-shaped body and Pokedex entries suggest that it brings happiness to couples and spreads positive energy wherever it goes. It thrives in tranquil waters, embodying love and serenity. Lovedisk has no offensive capabilities to speak of, nor does it display any aggressive tendencies. Its role in the Pokemon world is purely symbolic, acting as a messenger of love and harmony. Next up, we have the Milotic line. The Milotic line begins with Feebas, a scrappy little water type often mocked for its ragged appearance and seemingly useless nature. Its Pokedex entries highlight its ability to survive in even the harshest waters, thriving where other Pokemon fail. Feebas isn't flashy or aggressive, it's just out there, quietly flopping along, doing its best. When it evolves into Milotic, the transformation is nothing short of breathtaking. Milotic is known as the Tender Pokemon and is revered for its ability to calm conflict and soothe anger with its serene presence. Pokedex entries highlight Milotic's soothing powers, which can pacify even the most hostile emotions. Despite its immense beauty and strength, Milotic doesn't flaunt its abilities. It uses them to bring peace and balance, embodying elegance, kindness, and restraint. But let's talk about Plusle and Minun. Plusle is the friend who will clap for you over something as mundane as pouring cereal correctly. This little cheerleader zaps sparks of joy when things are going well, whether it's in a battle or just because it's excited to see you. Minun, on the other hand, is the emotional support Pokemon you didn't know you needed. It's there to keep you going when you're down, even if it means taking some hits itself. Together, they're a walking motivational speech powered by electricity. Their good intentions are undeniable, but let's not ignore their spark-filled excitement. Their habit of releasing electricity when they're happy is adorable until someone's electronics short-circuit. Now, let's talk about the Blaziken line. Torchic kicks things off with its adorable baby bird vibes, looking like it could either light your house on fire or cuddle up on your lap, and somehow you'd still be happy. Torchic is characterized by its cheerful personality and strong bond with trainers. When it evolves into Combuskin, the fiery middle stage, it starts to show off its fighting prowess, and by the time we get to Blaziken, we've got a full-fledged warrior. According to Pokedex entries, Blaziken embodies the spirit of a noble martial artist. Its flames burn brighter the tougher its opponents, symbolizing its dedication to fair and honorable combat. While Blaziken is known for its incredible strength and agility, it's not a reckless relentless fighter. It fights with purpose and discipline, never coming across as needlessly brutal or sadistic. The line gets bonus points for its close relationships with humans, often acting as a protector for its trainers. Maze Blaziken in the anime is a great showcase of the line's positive traits. Grooving in like a TikTok dance challenge is the Ludicolo line. Lotad is the picture of innocence, a floating lily pad that doubles as a water taxi for smaller Pokemon. This little guy just wants to vibe in its pond and help out wherever it can, making it one of the most laid-back Pokemon around. Then comes Lombre, the classic prankster. This guy thinks it's hilarious to spook humans and swipe snacks. But then it evolves into Ludicolo, the party Pokemon. If it had a resume, Certified Hype Machine would be at the top of its list. Its Pokedex entry makes it clear that this Pokemon thrives on joy, music, and turning every moment into a fiesta. It's not just fun, it's contagious. While it may not be saving the world, its infectious happiness makes it a Pokemon you want in your corner when life gets tough. In Detective Pikachu, Ludicolo makes a cameo as a barista, serving coffee with an energy that screams vibes over efficiency. Next up is Chimecho. The Windchime Pokemon is as gentle and peaceful as its appearance suggests. Pokedex entries highlight its ability to produce soothing sounds by vibrating its body, often calming those around it. It uses its tail to collect food and occasionally carry objects, but it's far from aggressive. Chimecho is a serene Pokemon that prioritizes harmony and tranquility over conflict. Swooping in next is Tropius. Tropius is a kind-hearted grass and flying-type Pokemon with one of the most wholesome traits in the Pokemon world. It grows fruit on its neck to share with others. Pokedex entries highlight how it loves to snack on its own fruit, and it's often surrounded by Pokemon and humans alike, drawn to its delicious offerings. Next up are Volbeat and Illumise. Illumise isn't just a Pokemon, it's a glowing perfectionist. This Firefly Pokemon spends its nights choreographing light patterns in the sky like it's auditioning for a spot in an aerial dance troupe. Meanwhile, Volbeat is the dedicated backup dancer, following Illumise's lead with tireless perfection. Together, they create beauty out of nothing but light and effort, which is both wholesome and kind of show-offy. But let's talk about the Sceptile line. Trico, the line's starter point, is notable for its calm demeanor and bravery, often staring down opponents without flinching. Even Grovyle, the middle stage, adds to this noble lineage with its acrobatic skills and sharp focus. The Sceptile line doesn't just live in the forest, it's basically the homeowner association president of the forest, keeping everything in tip-top shape. With its blade-like leaves and athletic build, Sceptile doesn't just look like it could cut down a tree. It actively ensures the trees it protects thrive under its watch. This eco-warrior spirit earns big points, especially when it's implied that Sceptile takes its duties very seriously, often safeguarding smaller Pokemon and keeping its territory in balance. Soaring in next is the Flygon line, starting with Trapinch, a ground-type Pokemon that spends its early life digging traps in the desert sand to catch prey. When it evolves into Vibrava, things take a more graceful turn. It gains wings and a new ability to emit ultrasonic waves, but it really starts to shine when it evolves into Flygon. Known as the spirit of the desert, Flygon takes all that survival energy and channels it into being a serene and noble guardian. Whether it's gliding through sandstorms or keeping its territory safe, Flygon brings elegance to the Pokemon world. But let's move on to Lunatone and Solrock. These are rock/psychic Pokemon with celestial origins, said to have come to Earth via meteorites. Lunatone is tied to the moon and radiates a calming energy, while Solrock embodies the sun with its life-giving warmth. Both Pokemon are known for their serene and enigmatic presence, with Pokedex entries describing them as peaceful creatures that emit psychic energy to influence their surroundings. Neither are aggressive, they defend themselves and their territory when necessary, but show no signs of cruelty or malice. The Lunatone and Solrock duo epitomize balance and harmony, making them very peaceful and noble Pokemon. Bouncing into our next spot with zero bad vibes is Azurill. This is the Pokemon equivalent of Sunshine in a tiny, bouncy package. Its Pokedex entries highlight its playful nature, using its water-filled tail like a pogo stick to get around. It doesn't fight, it doesn't cause trouble, it just exists to spread joy and maybe knock over a lamp or two while it's bouncing around. Moving on to Wynot, a Pokemon that doesn't care about negativity. It's too busy having the time of its life. Its Pokedex entries highlight its love for group activities, making it the life of the party. Which brings us to the Medicham line, beginning with Meditite, a fighting and psychic type that devotes its life to rigorous training and meditation. According to its Pokedex entries, Meditite survives on minimal food and water, honing its body and mind to reach perfection, showing a lot of discipline and self-restraint. When it evolves into Medicham, its psychic powers and martial arts abilities reach their peak. Medicham is described as using its enhanced senses to predict its opponent's moves, making it great in a battle. Blowing into the rankings next with enough force to sink a boat is the Wailord line. Wailmer is basically the class clown of the ocean. Its Pokedex entries makes it clear that it lives for fun, bouncing and spouting water like it's auditioning for an aquatic circus. Then there's Wailord, the definition of a gentle giant. Despite being the size of a small island, Wailord is shockingly carefree and peaceful. It just wants to float through the ocean and occasionally leap out of the water like a whale-shaped comet. Next is the Delkitty line. Skitty kicks things off as the chaotic ball of fluff that loves chasing anything that moves, including its own tail. It's the kind of Pokemon that could knock over your entire kitchen counter and you still wouldn't be mad at it. When it evolves into Delkitty, it becomes the epitome of unbothered. This Pokemon lives life on its own terms, avoiding conflict like it's allergic to stress. Its Pokedex entries highlights its wandering nature, refusing to settle down or fight unless absolutely necessary. Basically the Pokemon world's embodiment of no drama. In the anime, these Pokemon are depicted as playful and charming companions, particularly Maze Skitty. But let's talk about some ancient Pokemon with the Regi trio. The Regi trio, Registeel, Regice, and Regirock, were created by Regigigas to embody steel, ice, and rock, which basically makes them the prehistoric Avengers. They're not out to harm anyone, but if you wake them up from their ancient naps, don't expect a warm welcome. Registeel is like a walking science mystery. Its metal body is harder than anything known to man, and its Pokedex entries casually mention it might not even be from Earth. It's practically indestructible and vaguely unsettling. Regice is made of unmelting ice, and it's more of an ancient glacier than a Pokemon. It doesn't pick fights, but when it does, it's like battling a sentient iceberg. And then there's Regirock, the Earth's repairman. If it gets damaged, it just finds some spare rocks and patches itself up. It's a boulder with a grudge if you mess with its sacred chambers. The Regi trio is here to guard ancient secrets and look intimidating while doing so. The ultimate lesson in don't poke the sleeping giant. Gliding in with grace is the Masquerain line. Surskit spends its days skating across ponds and secreting sugary syrup, making it more charming than threatening. When it evolves into Masquerain, it trades its water skating for flight and gains dramatic eye-like patterns to scare off predators, though it's still a gentle soul that avoids conflict. Our next entry is a mix of beauty and thorns, Roselia. Roselia looks like a peaceful little bouquet, but don't forget about the thorns. This Pokemon's sweet aroma can calm you down, but if you cross it, those roses pack enough poison to ruin your day. It's not out to start fights, but Roselia is the friendliest warning sign you'll ever meet. That said, it spends most of its time chilling out in the sun, keeping its flowers bright and vibrant, which is pretty wholesome. Zigzagging in next is the Linoon line. Zigzagoon is the Pokemon equivalent of a raccoon that has a sugar stash. Hyper, curious, and way too into everyone else's business. It'll poke its nose into anything, but not in a steal your wallet kind of way. More like a what does this button do way. Once it evolves into Linoon, things get hilariously chaotic. This Pokemon is built for speed, but has the turning radius of a brick, meaning its only crime is accidentally mowing down lots of small shrubs. Despite its crash-prone tendencies, Linoon is a loyal and well-meaning Pokemon, with a knack for sprinting itself straight into a wall. Next up is Relicanth. The Longevity Pokemon is one of the calmest and most ancient creatures in the Pokemon world. Pokedex entries highlight its peaceful existence, spending its life at the bottom of the ocean while avoiding conflict. It's a Pokemon that thrives on stability, not violence, making it a morally good Pokemon. Sprouting in next is the Breloom line. Starting with Shroomish, this grass type is the ultimate forest recycler, happily munching on decomposing leaves. While its dietary habits make it great for the environment, Shroomish isn't all sunshine and photosynthesis. Its Pokedex entries highlight its defensive nature. When threatened, it releases clouds of toxic spores, effectively clearing the room of any would-be attackers. Breloom is a skilled fighter, known for its stretchy arms and ability to deliver powerful punches. Despite its newfound combat prowess, it remains more protective than aggressive. It's primarily focused on defending itself and its territory rather than seeking out conflict. Flying in next, with two very different personalities, is the Beautifly and Dustox line. Wurmple, bless its little caterpillar heart, starts off as a leaf-eating blob with zero ambition beyond don't get squished. Then evolution gives it a spin on the wheel of fate. If it becomes Silcoon, you get Beautifly, the Pinterest-perfect butterfly that secretly moonlights as a predator. On the other hand, if Wurmple evolves into Cascoon, you get Dustox, a nocturnal moth-like Pokemon that's far less glamorous but equally misunderstood. Dustox is drawn to bright lights, like some sort of insect ravegoer, and its Pokedex entries describe it as leaving toxic scales wherever it flutters. May's Beautifly sparkled in Pokemon contests, radiating loyalty and grace. Meanwhile, Jessie's Dustox had a touching redemption arc, proving that even the less glamorous ones deserve love. Bolting into our next spot is the Majestic line. Starting with Electrike, a small but energetic electric-type Pokemon. It's known for storing static electricity in its fur, which it releases to defend itself. While it's not aggressive by nature, its bursts of electricity can cause minor chaos if it gets startled. Majestic is a powerhouse of electrical energy, and the Pokedex says that it creates thunderstorms as it runs, which is both awe-inspiring and potentially hazardous. Its territorial instincts means that it'll fiercely protect its domain, but doesn't go out of its way to harm others. Next is the Castform line. The weather Pokemon adapts to its environment by transforming its appearance and abilities based on the weather. Pokedex entries highlight its resilience on sunny, rainy, or snowy conditions to shift forms, showing its close connection to nature. In the anime, it's shown as cheerful and helpful, often assisting researchers like those in Unfair Weather Friends. It's depicted as playful and friendly, embodying its role as a whimsical weather companion. Next up, the rock that won't roll, Nosepass. Nosepass takes stubborn to a whole new level. It's literally magnetically locked in place, always facing north. This Pokemon doesn't go anywhere, but it doesn't need to. Its Pokedex entry describes it as a stoic guardian, launching magnetic rocks at anything that invades its territory, giving strong stay off my lawn energy. Moving on to the Hariyama line. Makuhita sets the tone with its underdog vibes, taking every punch life throws and asking for seconds. Its Pokedex entry describes it as a relentless little fighter that turns pain into progress. And then there's the gentle giant Hariyama, assuming your definition of gentle includes sending trucks into orbit. Its raw strength is no joke, but it wields its power with surprising restraint. Despite harnessing the power of Dave Chappelle's Rick James and Dana White's Power Slap, its love for martial arts keeps it focused, making it less of a destroyer and more of a disciplined protector. Another ancient entry, we have the Claydol line, beginning with Baltoy, a small ground and psychic type that floats serenely through life. According to its Pokedex entries, Baltoy was created from ancient clay figures brought to life by a mysterious energy, and it moves by spinning like a top. While it's peaceful and unassuming, it's also deeply tied to its origins, often found in ruins where it quietly exists without causing much harm. When it evolves into Claydol, its presence becomes more imposing, but its demeanor remains enigmatic. Pokedex entries describe Claydol as a guardian of ancient ruins, capable of firing powerful energy beams from its multiple eyes. While its abilities could be destructive, Claydol is primarily protective, using its powers to safeguard its territory and maintain balance. Flying in like the Amazon Prime delivery driver of the Pokemon world is the Pelipper line. Wingull kicks things off as the seagull you'd love to watch glide through the sky until it swoops down and snatches your lunch. Its Pokedex entry highlights its love of carrying shiny objects in its beak, which sounds cute until you realize it's probably borrowing them from unsuspecting trainers. Then there's Pelipper, the ultimate multitasker, with a beak that doubles as a fishing net, a storage compartment, and occasionally a taxi service for smaller Pokemon. It's living the dream of efficient transportation. Its Pokedex entries are mostly positive, emphasizing its helpfulness, but there's a slight edge to its scavenger-like tendencies. Our next spot goes to the Grumpig line. Spoink might be one of the most tragically quirky Pokemon ever created. Its Pokedex entries casually mention that its heart stops if it stops bouncing, which is both terrifying and kind of absurd. Imagine trying to take a nap when the cost of resting is your entire existence. Grumpig, on the other hand, trades bouncing for dancing, because why not? Its hypnotic moves let it manipulate others, but Grumpig doesn't seem to use its powers for evil. It's more of a psychic performance artist who accidentally creeps people out. Next is Kecleon. The color swap Pokemon is best known for its ability to camouflage almost perfectly with its surroundings, leaving only its signature zigzag stripe visible. Pokedex entries describe it is highly adaptable and resourceful, using its chameleon-like powers to avoid detection and sneak up on prey. And creeping in next is the Cradily line, which begins with Lileep, a rock grass-type fossil Pokemon resurrected from ancient times. Pokedex entries describe it as a patient and strategic predator, using its tentacles to pull prey close while disguising itself as seaweed to avoid detection. While its hunting tactics might sound predatory, it's simply following the natural order of survival in a prehistoric world. When it evolves into Cradily, it becomes an even more effective hunter. It uses its rooted tentacles to trap and consume prey, and its Pokedex entries note that it can move around slowly despite appearing plant-like. And with our good section wrapped up, it's now time to move into more neutral territory. These Gen 3 Pokemon fall in the moral gray area, and shouting its way in next is the Explode line. Whismur starts off as a shy little Pokemon that seems harmless until it screams. Its Pokedex entries talk about how its cries are loud enough to cause actual physical pain. And then there's Loudred, who cranks the noise to 11 and stomps around like it's auditioning for a monster movie. This Pokemon doesn't do subtle. It yells, it stomps, and it basically treats every conversation like a shouting match. Exploud takes things to their logical extreme by becoming a living megaphone of destruction, and its Pokedex entries describe it producing sound waves so powerful that they can demolish buildings. Next is the Armaldo line, starting with Anorith, a rock and bug type brought back to life from a fossil. It's described in its Pokedex entries as a fierce swimmer with sharp claws used to snag prey. When it evolves into Armaldo, it becomes a walking tank. The Pokedex highlights its powerful claws, which can break through armor, and its ability to battle on land and in water. Smashing into our next spot with enough force to level a mountain is the Aggron line. Aggron starts things off as a scrap metal enthusiast. It has a love for munching on discarded steel, which is great for recycling, but I suppose less great if you parked your car too close. When it evolves into Lyron, its appetite for metal grows, and so does its power. It becomes territorial, staking claims on mountains and defending them fiercely. While this can lead to conflict, it is simply protecting its domain. And finally, there's Aggron, the Armored Guardian. The Pokedex does highlight its role as a protector of its mountain territory. It repairs environmental damage, replanting trees, and maintaining balance in its domain. However, its fierce loyalty to its home can turn it into a very destructive force when anyone stumbles into its domain. Next is the Whiscash line. Barboach is so chill, it's practically part of the riverbed. It spends its days hiding in mud, slimy enough to avoid predators and lazy enough to avoid trouble. Then there's Whiscash. This oversized catfish has a reputation for causing earthquakes, not because it's angry, but because it can. And its Pokedex entries read like a warning label for a natural disaster. Territorial, unpredictable, and always ready to shake things up. Lurking in the shadows of our next spot is the Mightyana line. Poochyena is your classic troublemaker puppy. It bites first and asks questions never. Its Pokedex entries describe it as gnawing on anything that moves, which might be cute if it didn't sound like a canine horror movie. When it evolves into Mightyana, it grows into a loyal Pokemon with strong pack instincts, which earns it points for its sense of camaraderie and devotion. That said, there is a darker side to that loyalty. Mightyana is often used by criminal organizations like Team Magma and Team Aqua in the games and anime. While we can't blame the species entirely, its consistent association with bad actors suggests its intimidating presence and aggressive tendencies make it an appealing partner for people with less than noble intentions. That said, Mightyana's loyalty is unparalleled when it has a trustworthy trainer. Next up is Couch Potato Royalty, the Slaking line. Slakoth starts things off by making your laziest Sunday look like a CrossFit session. This Pokemon moves only when absolutely necessary and spends most of its life napping in trees. Vigoroth is where things go off the rails. It goes from do nothing to do everything all at once. This hyperactive bundle of chaos can't sit still and has a knack for causing trouble just by existing. And then there's Slaking, who might as well be a boss battle in an energy drink ad. It has the strength to flatten forests and the apathy to let those forests burn if it means avoiding any effort. It doesn't really mean to cause harm, but when it decides to move, it's like a freight train that forgot to brake. Next up is the Swalot line. Gulpin is a tiny poison type that eats everything it can fit in its mouth, and many things it probably shouldn't. Its appetite is more comedic than harmful, but its lack of boundaries makes it a bit of a walking hazard. When it evolves into Swalot, that appetite grows to alarming levels, with it capable of swallowing objects as big as itself. It's laid back, but its toxic body and endless consumption makes it a bit risky to be around. Warping in next is Deoxys. Deoxys isn't your typical legendary Pokemon. It's literally a mutated space virus that got hit by a laser and decided to become sentient. Its Pokedex entries call it adaptable, but let's be real, it's more like terrifyingly unpredictable. It can change forms to suit its mood, whether that's being a speed demon, a tank, or a wrecking ball with arms. It's not malicious, but it's definitely not trying to make friends either. Most of Deoxys' lore revolves around its otherworldly nature and its need to protect itself. It doesn't pick fights for fun, it's just incredibly territorial and doesn't like being poked by curious humans. In Destiny Deoxys, it's revealed that all of its chaos was just a misunderstanding. It wasn't invading Earth, it was just looking for its missing core, which makes it less alien overlord and more lost extraterrestrial with anger issues. Deoxys' immense power and inscriptability make it morally neutral. It's not evil, but you probably don't want to accidentally step into its personal space. Moving on to the Shiftry line. Seedot just likes to cling to trees and blend in so well it might as well be invisible. Nuzleaf takes that quiet demeanor and throws it out the window, transforming into a prankster with a leaf flute. And then it evolves into Shiftry, the wise yet terrifying elder of the forest. This Pokemon doesn't just guard its home, it judges anyone who dares enter. Its Pokedex entry suggests it has a moral code, but it's a little too eager to whip up destructive winds if it feels disrespected. Moving on to Sableye. This ghost and dark type is notorious for living in caves and feeding on gemstones, which it hoards in its lair. Its Pokedex entries highlight its sneaky, prankster-like behavior, with its glowing eyes designed to unnerve anyone who dares enter its domain. And while it may not want to harm others, its behavior suggests it enjoys causing a bit discomfort for fun. And if Pokedex entries are to be believed, Sableye's hypnotic eyes can manipulate prey into handing over whatever it wants. Surging into our next spot like a living tidal wave is Kyogre, one of the oldest and most revered legendary Pokemon embodying the oceans themselves. According to Pokemon lore, Kyogre was created by nature as a primal force to expand the seas. In ancient times, Kyogre's immense power was both feared and worshipped, as it was credited with creating the oceans that gave life to much of the planet's ecosystem. That said, this immense ability came with catastrophic consequences, as its efforts to expand the seas caused widespread flooding that threatened both Pokemon and humans. Its lore is deeply tied to its rivalry with Groudon. In ancient myths, the two primal Pokemon clashed repeatedly, their opposing goals of expanding the sea and land, plunging the world into chaos. These battles were so destructive that they were said to have nearly torn the planet apart, and the only thing capable of stopping their destructive feud was Rayquaza, which descended from the sky to quell their fury. In modern times, Kyogre rests deep in the ocean, only awakening when disturbed. Its calm and majestic demeanor masks the raw power it wields, and while it does not act out of malice, its instincts to expand the sea can cause devastation on a massive scale. When it enters its primal reversion form, Kyogre's power grows exponentially, enabling it to summon torrential downpours that could submerge entire continents. In Pokemon Emerald, the player witnesses the disastrous consequences of Kyogre's awakening as the world is engulfed in endless rain. This lore solidifies Kyogre as a figure of nature's raw and different power, neither good nor evil but purely primal. In the anime, such as in Gaining Groudon, Kyogre is depicted as majestic yet dangerous, reflecting its dual role as a giver of life and a bringer of destruction. Now, rumbling into the rankings with seismic authority is Groudon. Groudon, the continent Pokemon, is the terrestrial counterpart to Kyogre and the embodiment of the Earth itself. Groudon was created as a primal force to expand the land, raising continents and mountains from the sea. It was both feared and revered in ancient times as a being of immense power, capable of reshaping the planet to suit its purpose. While Groudon's creation of land was essential for life to thrive on Earth, its methods were anything but subtle, often involving volcanic eruptions and intense droughts that could devastate entire ecosystems. Groudon's rivalry with Kyogre is a cornerstone of its lore. As Kyogre sought to expand the oceans, Groudon worked to expand the landmass, leading to catastrophic battles between the two. These clashes, fueled by their primal instincts, were said to have thrown the world into chaos, and the balance between sea and land was pushed to its limits. It wasn't until Rayquaza intervened that the world was saved from their destructive feud. Unlike Kyogre, which is often depicted as calm and majestic, Groudon's portrayal leans more towards aggression and confrontation. It's quick to battle anything that threatens its domain, and uses its immense strength to assert its dominance. When Groudon enters its primal reversion form, it gains the ability to summon scorching sunlight and create land at an accelerated rate, further further amplifying its already destructive tendencies. In Pokemon Emerald, Groudon's awakening results in relentless droughts, showcasing the catastrophic consequences of its primal instincts. Next is the Shedinja line, starting with Nincada, a quiet little bug and ground type that spends its days digging underground and surviving on tree roots. Then there's Ninjask, the speedster who moves so fast it's basically a Pokemon blur. Its Pokedex entries claim its buzzing can drive people insane, which doesn't mean it's evil, but it's probably banned from libraries. And then we have Shedinja. This creepy husk of a Pokemon is what's left behind during evolution, but somehow it's alive, kind of. Its Pokedex entries warn you not to look into the hole on its back unless you're okay with losing your soul. You know, no big deal. Moving on to the Camerupt line. Numel is best described as a walking nap. This Pokemon is so oblivious it doesn't even notice when it's in pain, a trait that's both adorable and a bit concerning. And then there's Camerupt, a Pokemon with all the subtlety of an active volcano. Its Pokedex entries make it clear, don't tick it off unless you want an impromptu eruption. It doesn't lash out maliciously, but when this fiery beast gets mad, entire fields of grass end up as ash. Next up is the Metagross line. Beldum starts things off as a glorified magnet that floats around doing the absolute minimum. The Pokedex doesn't even try to pretend it has a personality. It's just a chunk of steel with basic survival instincts. Then there's Metang, which is basically Beldum 2.0. It gains a second brain and magnetic flight, making it smarter and stronger, but it's still running on autopilot. And finally we have Metagross, the battle machine. With 4 brains working in sync, it's more intelligent than most humans, but that intelligence comes with zero compassion. Pokedex entries describe it as pinning prey under its massive body and calculating everything with machine-like precision. Next up is the Groudon line. Corphish might be small, but it's a little ball of fury with pincers. This water type doesn't back down from anything, throwing itself into fights like it has something to prove. The Pokedex describes it as aggressive and scrappy, which is just a polite way of saying it's always looking for a fight. When it evolves into Crawdaunt, any subtlety goes right out the window. Crawdaunt is pure chaos, ripping through habitats and scaring off anything that moves. Its Pokedex entries describe it as violent and destructive. Moving on to the Walrein line. Beginning with Spheal, a round and cheerful ice/water type that's more likely to roll around than cause trouble. Described as playful and friendly, enjoying group activities with its herd. When it evolves into Celio, things take a slightly more serious tone. Celio is described as inquisitive and focused, using its large nose to study objects and environments. Walrein, however, brings a frosty storm of aggression, known as the Icebreak Pokemon. Its Pokedex entries emphasize its powerful tusks and its ability to smash through icebergs to protect its territory. While its strength is impressive, its destructive tendencies and territorial nature makes it very dangerous to encounter, and its willingness to attack anything, coupled with its raw power, moves it into a morally darker territory. And with our gray area complete, it's finally time to move into the dark side. These Gen 3 Pokemon are the bad and the evil. Stalking its way into our next spot is Zangoose, a Pokemon that is a walking rivalry with fur. Its Pokedex entries make one thing clear. It exists to fight Seviper, and it will not back down. Whether it's ripping through enemies with its razor-sharp claws or diving headfirst into another brawl with Seviper, Zangoose is as relentless as they come. And you almost have to respect the sheer pettiness of holding a grudge that hard. Speaking of which, next is Seviper, which is a venomous grudge with scales. Seviper in turn exists to fight Zangoose, and it doesn't care about anything else. With venomous fangs and a bladed tail, it's basically a weapon wrapped in bad intentions. Our next spot has to go to the Salamence line, a dragon-type Pokemon driven by its dream of flying. It's described as determined but reckless, and it repeatedly throws itself off cliffs in its quest to take to the skies. While its ambition is admirable, its headbutting rocks and smashing things in frustration show that it has a slightly chaotic edge. When it evolves into Shelgon, it becomes more patient, encased in a sturdy shell as it waits for its ultimate transformation. Salamence, however, is where things escalate. Its Pokedex entries describe its flying ability as a dream fulfilled, but also emphasizes its very destructive tendencies. Overwhelmed with joy at its newfound wings, it often unleashes wild destruction in its flight path, burning everything in its wake with dragon-type force. Next up we have Mawile. Mawile doesn't play fair, but that's kind of the point. This steel fairy type is a master manipulator, using its cute, harmless appearance to reel in prey before delivering a jaw-dropping attack. Its Pokédex entries don't even pretend it's innocent. It knows exactly what it's doing, and honestly, it's kind of proud of it. Torpedoing it next is the Sharpedo line. Carvanha is basically a floating ball of teeth and bad intentions. This Pokemon doesn't just nibble on prey, it goes full piranha mode, tearing through anything unfortunate enough to cross its path. And the fact that it travels in packs makes it even more terrifying, as if one wasn't bad enough. And then it evolves into Sharpedo, which takes Carvanha's chaos and turns it into an apex predator. This Pokemon is known as the Bully of the Sea, and is essentially a living torpedo with an attitude. It doesn't hurt, it just annihilates, using its speed and steel-crushing jaws to make sure nothing escapes. Next up we have the Dusclops line, which begins with Duskull, a ghost-type Pokemon with a chilling reputation. It's described as a haunting figure that enjoys scaring people, especially misbehaving children. If we're being generous, a spooky prankster that thrives on scaring people into good behavior. When Duskull evolves into Dusclops, things get considerably darker. Pokédex entries highlight Dusclops as a ghostly vortex, capable of sucking anything into its hollow body, where it disappears forever. This terrifying ability isn't used indiscriminately, but the very fact that it exists makes Dusclops one of the more ominous Pokemon around. Also, Dusclops often guards graves or sacred grounds, suggesting a protective role, but its eerie powers and mysterious behavior make it rather sinister. Freezing our next spot is the Glalie line, which starts out with Snorunt, a cheerful and harmless Pokemon. Its Pokédex entries describe it as a bringer of good fortune, happily playing in snowy environments and surviving the cold with an upbeat demeanor. But then comes Glalie, where things take a sinister turn. Glalie's Pokédex entries highlight its predatory nature, freezing its prey solid before devouring it. This isn't a Pokemon that hunts out of desperation, it's a calculated predator that shows no mercy. Its cold, piercing stare and brutal methods place it firmly in the dark category. Glalie's lack of empathy makes it a very unsettling Pokemon. Now let's talk about one of the creepiest things in the desert, the Cacturn line, which has to earn today's bronze medal of evil. Cacnea might seem innocent, with its round body and cheerful grin, but don't get too close unless you want a hug full of spikes. Cacnea survives in the harsh desert by using its spines as weapons. Cacturn, though, is where the nightmares start. Pokédex entries call it a relentless stalker, following prey through the night and waiting for exhaustion to do the work for it. There's no wasted energy here. Cacturn hunts with quiet precision, proving that sometimes the scariest thing isn't what chases you, but what patiently watches from the shadows. It doesn't care about fairness or heroics, it's just here to outlast you, and it's terrifyingly good at it. In the anime, Cacnea is James's mischievous yet lovable companion, often clinging to him affectionately despite its spines. Cacturn, however, lives up to its ominous lore in episodes like From Cradle to Safe, where its eerie stalking tactics are on full display. Lurking its way into our next spot are the Huntail and Gorbis line, which earns the Silver Medal of Evil. Clamperl is the starting point for this dual line, a quiet and docile water type that spends its life tucked safely in its sturdy shell, not causing any trouble. But when it evolves into Huntail, the tone shifts dramatically. The deep sea Pokemon is described in Pokédex entries as a deep water predator with a vicious hunting style. It uses its eel-like body to swim swiftly and trap prey, showing no hesitation in its survival tactics at all. Its methods are efficient and brutal. On the other hand, Gorbis adds an unsettling twist to the line as well. While its elegant appearance suggests grace, its Pokédex entries reveal a far more sinister nature. Gorbis is said to drain the bodily fluids of its prey, leaving behind an empty husk. The sheer creepiness of its feeding habits make Gorbis one of the more disturbing Pokemon out there. Now, stalking its way into your nightmares like a cursed Build-A-Bear gone rogue is the Bayonet line. Starting with Shuppet, a Pokemon drawn to strong emotions, particularly negative ones like envy and malice. Pokédex entries describe it as a shadowy spirit that feeds off grudges, silently absorbing the bad vibes of its surroundings. Bayonet's backstory reads like the premise of a Halloween special that no one asked for. Once a discarded plush toy, this ghost type came back to life, powered by the kind of grudge that could make even your most bitter ex jealous. Its entire existence revolves around hunting down its former owner and cursing them into oblivion. How does it do this? By stabbing itself with pins. So yeah, Bayonet is basically a walking voodoo doll, and frankly, it seems to be enjoying itself a little too much. It also doesn't even pretend to be a misunderstood ghost. It's not out there helping souls cross over or pulling harmless pranks. It's a one Pokemon revenge machine with a zipper mouth full of curses waiting to burst out. The one silver lining here is that its vendetta is highly specific. Unless you're its target, you're probably safe. Probably. And then there's Mega Bayonet, which is where things go off the rails. When it Mega evolves, the zipper pops open, fully unleashing its vengeful energy. Mega Bayonet doesn't just feel angry, it is anger, stitched together with an extra creepy doll. In the anime, Bayonet has made a few chilling appearances. In Pokemon Advanced Battle, a Bayonet stole items to enact revenge, proving it's as petty as it is terrifying. We award Bayonet the Envy Sinner Medal, because its vengeful existence revolves around bitter jealousy towards its former owner. We give Swalot the Gluttony Sinner Medal, for its insatiable appetite to devour anything in sight. Nobody deserves the Sloth Sinner Medal more than Slaking, as it truly is the king of laziness. The Greed Sinner Medal has to go to Linoon because its obsessive hoarding of items demonstrates insatiable greed. Though we are actually going to give the Pride Sinner Medal to Absol because its aloof demeanor and dramatic warnings of disaster makes it seem like it relishes in its role as a misunderstood savior. The Wrath Sinner Medal has to go to Salamence because its destructive rage upon evolving embodies pure, uncontrolled wrath.